Hello and welcome to this episode of Tales from the Armchair. Now we've all played this game, you know the one, where you go to a party and people say, if you were a superhuman, what special power would you have? I've written a story about it. It's called Project Earth. It was nearly my turn. All 15 of us chosen travellers had been summoned to stand before Zacron the Master. His deep voice boomed out. Before you are sent to the lower level, you will each be given a power of your own choosing. Choose wisely, because that which I now bestow on you as a gift, if misused, will be your curse. We all looked nervous as he spoke, and then one by one, we selected a glass vial from the table in front of him. Each tube was etched with a golden monogram that identified the power that it contained. All we had to do was select a vial, break it, and inhale the essence within. There were 15 different powers and 15 vials of each power, so that the selection, if required, could be replicated, and the choice was truly ours. No one was made to have a power that was simply passed over by the others. One by one, the selections were made. Many chose the power of strength, and quite a few that of flight. The ability to read minds was also popular, but I was the only one that selected the power of my choice. Zacron stood up and said that we had all chosen well. Then he divulged that each power would be countered by inflicting upon us a weakness. Those that chose strength would be vulnerable to certain material elements found at the lower level. Contact with these elements would make them as weak as babies. Those that chose flight would drop from the sky if they were touched by rain, and so the list went on. I raised my hand and asked Zacron what weakness would counter my chosen power, and he just smiled and said that it would become obvious to me in time. We collectively stepped into the quantum chamber, put on our eye protectors and waited for the beam to be energized. The sound of the beam generator was like that of a legendary siren, sweet, hypnotic and pure. Within seconds, we materialised amongst the crowd of commuters on a tube train platform, a mode of primitive transport used by the dwellers of the lower level. Merging with the commuters, we made our way up into the sunlight, and shielding our eyes, we could see that we were on a wide street, beside which ran an even wider river. The crowd, whose momentum was carrying us along, suddenly stopped, and individually they looked up, pointed, and began to speak amongst themselves. On a parapet, high up on a bridge that spanned the river, stood a man, his arms stretched out wide to his sides, gripping the concrete balustrade. His face looked desperate as others on the bridge tried to reason with him. It was obvious that he was about to throw himself to his death into the dark, deep water. This was the type of situation that we had been sent to resolve, and a few of us upper levelers sprang into action. Those with the power of strength tried to move the bridge and lower it so that the man did not have far to fall. But their efforts put the lives of others in danger, so they gave up. Those with the powers of flight flew up and stood by his side, holding out their hands for the man to take so that they could transport him back down to ground level. But he just shunned their offers of help. Then one amongst us that could read minds tuned into the man, and having done so, almost immediately fell to his knees and simply cried. We had come all this way and we appeared to be unable to help. I was the last. This had become obviously my default position. My power was the last that people turned to, where obviously I would agree that it should be the very first. I walked along the roadway of the bridge until I was adjacent to the man, who was still clinging desperately to the parapet. I walked slowly across to him, not wanting to alarm him, and gently whispered into his ear. His body began to relax, and his face, previously a mask of stress and anxiety, began to look serene and calm. I offered him my hand, and carefully he climbed back over the parapet onto the roadway, and together we walked back to the side of the riverbank from whence I had come. An ambulance crew placed a blanket around the man and attended to him as I began to walk away. Suddenly, a young lady broke from the crowd and ran after me. She appeared to be a journalist. "Wait, don't go," she cried. "Please tell me, what did you whisper to the man to get him to come down?" I looked at her and took a deep breath before answering her question. All I said to him was, "You are loved." The headline in the newspaper next morning announced my arrival on Earth and told the population of this lower level the secret of my superpower. It read, "Bridge jumper saved by Love Man." That night, I felt his pain.